And finally, today Islam Channel News went to see an Algerian man who's faced with deportation back to his country on the grounds that he's a threat to national security. We spoke to Mouloud Sihali 6 months ago about the ordeal he suffered, and today Darren Eletr went to see him again.
The last time Islam Channel News spoke with Mouloud Sihali, we found out how he was subject to a control order, having had a previous trial fail to convict him of any terror charges, and how he was fighting deportation back to his native Algeria. He was one of 8 men implicated in the Wood Green Rising plot, but he was cleared of that. But his freedom was short-lived, and after the London bombings last year, he was detained again, deemed a threat to national security, and now faces deportation back to the North African country. But in the 6 months since, Sihali's situation has worsened. When we last saw him, the young Algerian walked with a limp, but he's now revealed to us that he's suffering from a potentially fatal virus. Sihali has also been moved, and his new accommodation is a small room. It's barely adequate for a person under normal conditions, let alone an asthmatic who's confined to his home for 15.5 hours a day. And now Sihali has contracted a potentially life-threatening lung virus, one that isn't treatable, he says. And his Special Immigrations Appeal Commission hearing has been delayed until the new year, after the Home Office promised him it will be heard by December.
With the SAC hearing, it got worse. I've been asking to get an earlier date and to be put as first in the queue as possible, just to get along with this and finish it and end it once and for all. SAC has been promising every one of us, the court, that they will deal with everyone of us by the end of term, December, and since then they have approached us twice by answering on faxes to our lawyers, saying that there is delay and they can't possibly deal with everybody else's. Now they have put it back onto January next year, and then recently onto February. That's for just me, right? And then now the last week the Home Office served statements to my lawyers, saying to them that it can't possibly be on February. So they're saying April as a logic dates, subject to change.
Sihali now has to live in this tiny room. He isn't allowed to have visitors inside, so we had to film from the doorway. Mouloud says he feels like a prisoner in his small room. And he told me how the Home Office know about his asthma and his lung condition, yet still chose to put him here.
I have been asking for a bigger place because I was in Old Street, in Hoxton. I had a kind of studio flat to live in separate space, and it wasn't fit. It's too pollution, and I'm asthmatic and I have a sarcoidosis, a severe lung condition. So I've been asking them to put me in a bigger place. They did. They put me in a bigger place, but it was in Slough. And then it's far away from hospitals and everything, which I had a very, serious series of tests that I did almost on a weekly basis. I have to travel to London to go to the London Bart Hospital in East London. So it's 3 hours travel altogether every day, So they were obliged somehow to put me back in London.
The Algerian is appealing against his deportation on human rights grounds. He refuses to go back to Algeria with the stigma of terrorism hanging over his head, and blames the government for prolonging his ordeal.
And I strongly think and believe that this kind of treatment that they're putting on me is just to put pressure onto me, to feel that my life is not worth living in England, and then to abandon the fight on court and sign my own return to Algeria. It's part of their psychological war against us, the Algerians, make my life as miserable as possible. And I think Tony Blair has made it as a challenge to himself, saying that as long as they stay in here, I will make their life as miserable as possible.
So now I understand the Home Office and the Algerian government are negotiating about individual Algerian deportees.
Yeah. So far, they have shut all negotiation with the Algerian regarding the Memorandum of Understanding and any assurances. The Algerian, practically what we understand it to be, is the position is they are saying we don't need to sign any Memorandum of Understanding. If we do sign Memorandum of Understanding, that means we do torture, and we are going to make exception to you, the British people.
And what is your status in the country right now?
Well, my status right now is an asylum seeker. I'm not a failed asylum seeker, They haven't decided on my case either to grant me asylum or refuse me asylum.
But are you happy with this asylum tag that you've been given?
No. Why should I be happy? I mean, if this is what the asylum, is about, protecting people or ruining their life and putting them onto this mental, torture and on all this nightmare that is going on a daily basis. I'm not really happy, and I don't think anyone would be happy to be treated like that,
This young Algerian is clearly depressed, but his strength of character means that he's still fighting and looking forward to a future back in Algeria after he's cleared his name.